our class today will base on the distance, displacement, speed, and velocity. Now, before we go on, don't forget in our previous class, that is the first class we did, we classified this distance and displacement under the same family because they have the same unit and the same dimension. But inshallah today we are going to separate them. Then don't forget, both of them, this and this, they are fundamental quantity, while the speed and velocity we classify them under derived quantity. Now let's go on for today's class. Now, if somebody asks you to define distance and displacement or differentiate between the two, now distance is the measurement along the path. Measurement along the path, the way you move, the way you curve, when you curve, in whatever direction you take, they are going to measure it along that direction. For instance, let's say somebody wants to move from this point O. The person is going to point B, but if the person takes his direction like this, from point O to point Q, from point Q to point B. So the distance covered by that person will be measurement along this path. From O to Q, then from Q to R. You measure the two, then you add it together. Now the journey has already formed a right angle triangle by joining this one to this. Now this point O to point P that you are joining together is displacement, because it will give you shortest distance and it will have specific direction. This one does not have any specific direction. That's why we call it distance. So in that case, we classify distance under scalar quantity. When we say scalar quantity, what do I mean by that? It means the quantity that does not have what? Direction, but it has magnitude. Like this one, we have 40 plus 30, which will give you 70. Therefore, distance for this one, distance is equal to 30 plus 40, which will give us what? 70 centimeter. Then the displacement cover, you just measure it. Now, since that has already formed right angle triangle, like what I said before, you can easily use Pythagoras theorem to get it. Let's apply that. So this one will serve as hypotenuse of the triangle. We are going to have hypotenuse square is equal to opposite square, which is 30 square, plus adjacent square, that is 40 square. So in that case, we are going to have 900 plus 1600. Therefore, R square will give us 2500. You now find the square root. Therefore, the hypotenuse will give us square root of 2500, which is equal to 50 centimeter. Therefore, the displacement, that is the shortest distance covered, is 50 centimeter. Then the displacement is equal to 50 centimeters. You can see the difference. That's why we call it shortest distance. So this one is giving us 70, while this one is what? 50. Now, what of the case where the journey does not form any shape like this one? Look at this figure B. That's why I have this one. So if somebody starts journey from here and it's going like this, from here, from 0.0 to N, then to N, then to R, back to Q, back to this point Q. So if you want to know the distance covered along the path, you can use rope or thread. You measure it like this from this certain point. You trace it like this along the path that particular person took, like this. Then back like this. You measure it like this, back to the end point of the journey. Then you mark it. You now take it to the ruler. You measure it like this. So according to this one, it's giving me 64 centimeter. 64 centimeter. Therefore, the distance covered here, distance is equal to 64 centimeter. Then what is the displacement? In case of displacement, I don't need to stretch myself. It must be a straight line because it must have specific direction. And that one will give you the shortest distance. Just place your ruler there like this. You measure it. So this one is giving me 43 centimeter. Therefore, the displacement in this case, displacement is equal to 43 centimeters. You can see the difference. That's why we said displacement is the sorted distance from starting point to the end point. Now, somebody now asks you, what is the difference between distance and displacement? The first thing is distance is scalar quantity, displacement is vector quantity. Then the second one is this. Do you know that somebody can move and cover certain distance where his or her displacement will be what? Is 0. For instance, let's say you have somebody starting the journey from point A like this to point B. After getting to point B, the person return back to point A. Therefore, the distance covered by short person will give you this. To measure this one, which is giving me 42 centimeter. From here to here is 42 centimeter. You now measure it back because it has gone like this, and came back to this place. Therefore, the distance covered is equal to 42 plus 42, which is equal to 84 centimeter. But what of the displacement? Displacement is equal to 0. Because for instance, somebody has already seen the person here, but after some time, he still met that person at this point. The person has not displaced at all. He still remains at that point. So the displacement is equal to 0. Therefore, distance, we can have value of distance where the displacement will come what? Is 0. Now, let's go to the next topic, which is speed. Now, speed is the distance covered over what? Time. Distance covered per unit time. Therefore, speed is equal to distance over time taken. Now, if you look at it very well, under what will you classify this speed? Is this vector quantity or scalar quantity? Let's look at it. Distance is a scalar quantity. Then time is also scalar quantity. Because if somebody asks you what time says, you can only tell the person the time. It's not even possible for that person to ask you the direction of the time. So in that case, time is also scalar. This is scalar quantity. This is another scalar quantity. So at the end of the day, it will give you what? Scalar. Therefore, speed is what? Scalar quantity. Now, what of velocity? Velocity of a car. So that one is what? Displacement per unit time. Displacement or distance covered in a specific direction per unit time. Or distance covered per unit time in a specific direction. Or you say displacement per unit time. Therefore, velocity is equal to displacement over time taken. Now, if you look at it very well, so since this displacement is a vector, so automatically velocity will become vector. Therefore, the difference or similarity between speed and velocity is that both of them, they have the same unit. What is the unit of speed? This one is meter, this one is seconds. That is SI unit. Therefore, the unit of speed is meter per second. What of this one? Displacement, don't forget, displacement has the same unit with distance. So this one is meter, the time is what? Seconds. Therefore, the unit of velocity is also what? Meter per seconds. But what happened? What's the difference between the two? This one is what? Scalar quantity, while this one is vector quantity. So, inshallah, the next topic is based on distance time graph, velocity time graph, displacement time graph.